CardGamesTV1 Podcast. Ironically, running out of ideas per se, or anything new, any new innovation per se. I am working on some stuff, of course, but running out of anything new that might be of use and relevancy, because it's like I'm just getting to the point where it's like I'm thinking of writing a book, because I want to be able to put all the information all into one place and be able to lay it out and just like I did with Yu-Gi-Oh! I wrote 3 books, but instead of writing three books, just gonna be doing one Dragon Ball Super book. So that'd be pretty cool. Put that together, be able to put all my thoughts, all my ideas, all into one nicely laid out, organized, hopefully easy to follow format, so people can read it, learn, and apply the knowledge, right? The knowledge. Because one of the things that's hard to translate, especially in like the deck profile, and sometimes even through gameplay, is a little difficult to translate or transfer knowledge and experience. That's usually why we have stuff like books, right? We have tutorials, things of that nature. So I'm always trying to try to find ways where I can share thoughts and ideas. And of course, with anything, things take time, especially when it comes to mastering something, understanding, studying something. It takes time, right? Doing the time and efforts and research and stuff. You have hypotheses, you have ideas, and you're trying to, theories, right? And trying to figure out and try to prove them through, experimentation, right? Through trying out your ideas and seeing what works, seeing the effectiveness of the ideas. And I've tried some, many different things, of course. And, some stuff worked out pretty easy. Some stuff required a little bit of effort. So at least you understand the difficulty of something. Because sometimes something is easier in your mind than it is in real life, right? Like they always say, it's easier said than done. So, for some people, it's easy for me to say the first 4 damage the easiest, next 2 requires a little effort, the last 2 is the hardest. But for some people, it's hard for them to, do those things, right? To do the first 4 damage, and then the next 2, and then the last 2, right? So then, of course, you want to find ways to do it faster. Right? You want to find ways to. That's why it's important that for everybody to try different things, and whatever works. If waiting to turn 4 to start swinging at your opponent's leader works best for you, then do it. You know what I mean? You don't have to try to do the first 4 damage in the first two turns, or even the first 4 turns of the game. Take your time. Wait until turn 4, and then start trying to swing. Just gotta make sure you have a strategy that works pretty well. We understand that in order to do 8 damage, you need at least a minimum of 4 double strike attacks, right? Or at least 4 attacks that have dual attacks, so that way they potentially do 2 damage per each attack. Right? So we're going to have to try to figure out a way to, get as many attacks out as possible, so you can do a lot of damage. There's the going wide strategy, right? Or just plain stuff. Like if you play, that's just the most basic way, but like if you can get 3 triple attackers out, right? That's 9 damage right there. If you can get 8 attacks, right? 8 attackers, which means, since you already have the leader, you only need 7 attackers. So being able to put out 7 attackers with your leader, you know, you could potentially do 8 damage. But the reason we say potentially is because of the fact that your opponent can always play a blocker negate, right? That could potentially stop 2 attacks right there. Drastically preventing you from, you know, being able to do 2 damage, right? So they can reduce the 2 damage down to a 1 essentially. They can always out combo attacks, and the list goes on and on and on, right? So ideally is that you're trying to find sweet spots, right? To try to find attacks that are harder to stop, right? That's why I like dual attacks is useful, because of the fact that if they do negate the first attack, at least you have a second one. So having stuff that so this is an ideal type of card. You want something that has dual attack or more, like triple attack, right? A double strike or more, like triple strike, or quadruple, right? And at least a minimum of 30k power. If you can get something stronger, like 40k plus, you know, that'd be nice. So there's very few cards that are 30k double strike with dual attack, right? There's very few stuff like that. There's a bigger number of couple 20ks with double strike and dual attack, if I'm right. And the list gets smaller and smaller. But this is, you know, part of the research, right? This is part of being a player. Is trying to find multiple attacks. So that's why I try to make little folders where I store images of cards that meet these criteria, right? I have a folder right now with triple attackers, cards that have the word triple attack, not strike, attack. So I'm obviously looking out for stuff like that, stuff that can attack more than twice. So 3 attacks per card. There's even some unisons that have the ability to gain triple attack. Now, of course, there'll be another folder where it's triple strike, right? Cards that have triple strike. Ideally, things that have triple strike with dual attack or more than that. There's actually a card that gets triple strike and triple attack. So it can attack 3 times and do 3 damage. So it can do 9 damage all by itself. That is pretty badass, right? So there is a card that can one shot or one to kill your opponent, I should say. So the only thing you would need to do is find a way to guarantee that it can do what it does, right? There's a couple of cards that I'm looking into, right? You know, counter, always looking for those. There's a red-yellow counter, which has potential, right? Because it's a 2 energy commitment, so it's cheaper than, well, definitely way cheaper than Golden Avenger, which I do have a play set of now, and I'm using it in my Zamasu deck as part of my, you know, as part of a strategy, obviously. But I also have Swift Retaliation Cooler. So this card is cheaper than that, so I also have that card. And I still have my old Bad Ring Laser, so those are the counters that I have. I mean, I do have another counter, but it doesn't really do anything. And that's the 3-drop Vegeta dual attack. You know, this counter. But he is 20k dual attack, so in blue, so he has some use. But the counter doesn't actually counter anything. But you get the idea. So yeah, counters. That's a thing that I'm definitely looking into, because of the fact that it can stop a negate, and usually that's what prevents you from winning, especially blocker negates, floodgate negates, topos, oceanus, things like that. Those can really get in the way and prevent you from winning the game, and of course you don't want that. So gotta look into that, right? But like I was saying, it's like trying to find ways to make things easier, simpler. The goal is to obviously deal 8 damage so you can win. And that's why I talk about how important win cons are, right? Having a strategy to win out the game. Because at the most basic level of the game, I keep saying the first 4 damage is the easiest, mainly because your opponent lets you deal that damage. So the next 2 requires a little bit of effort. You might have 3 to 4 attacks you swing at your opponent, and only 2 of them gets through. So that's the effort part, and then the last 2 is the hardest, because if you could easily do the last 2 damage, right, then it wouldn't be the hardest, and this game wouldn't be as interesting if the last 2 was the easiest, right? You always want the game to be easy for you, but hard for your opponent. But you want the game to be as easy as possible for you, but hard for your opponent. But you don't want it to be too easy, right? Because then you don't want to be. What I'm saying is, you don't want it to be easy, as in like mechanic wise, game design wise. You don't want the game to be easy. You want it to be easy because you made it easy, right? Because you picked certain cards, you built your deck in such a way, and you have experience from play testing a lot, right? That the game is easier for you because of your time and effort put into the game. It's what makes it easier for you, right? Like it's easy for Michael Jordan to dunk and to play basketball, right? Because he put a lot of time and effort in practice, so he makes it look effortless, or he makes it look easy. That's what I mean by you want the game to be easy for you but hard for your opponent. So you want the game to be hard and difficult, so that way it's a challenge, right? That way it's worth playing. Because if the game was super easy, like flipping a coin or something, then like a coin toss or a dice roll, then it's actually pointless to play the game if it was that easy. Now I always talk about how simple the game is, and how easy it is to play and understand the game. But I'm not saying this like so super easy that you could always win, right? You could always be undefeated, right? No, there's certain factors you need to take into account. Certain things that can go the opposite direction, right? You could have had guaranteed victory, right? Where it's like, yes, all I have to do is do this and I win, and then bang, something happens that changes the outcome, right? That prevents you from winning. It's like, damn, everything was going perfect. I just needed this one attack to go through, and then something happened, right? Something that wasn't taken into account. Something a little unexpected, right? So it can happen. Anything is possible. But the idea is obviously to reduce randomness, right? To reduce these situations where your opponent, doesn't lose. You want to reduce those situations. You want to increase the situations where your opponent loses. So you want to make it harder. That's where stuff like the concept of the death and taxes comes into play. Board wipe your opponent constantly, or at least a couple turns. At least on turn 3, turn 5. So every odd number, right? So obviously you don't need to board wipe turn 1, but being able to board wipe turn 3 and turn 5 tends to be pretty good, because of course your opponent should have established something by then. So clearing their board helps you stay in the game a little bit longer. At least increases your chances of getting one more turn afterwards, right? So there's that. And then of course playing stuff that makes it where if your opponent would try to play certain cards that typically would typically prevent you from playing the game, right? Like stealing trunks, right? That will stop you from playing your big good card, your game, your win con, your game finisher. Obviously this is why you always want to pick win cons, or anything that you're going to spend a lot of energy to play. Ideally you want it to have deflect and barrier. That way you can avoid those free play counter plays. And then use it to go for game. One way to avoid those types of cards is unisons. So looking at unisons, and I've definitely been doing that a lot lately. Looking at unisons and looking to find some for the purpose of using them as win cons. So instead of trying to look for win cons among battle cards, because ironically, there's very few battle cards that meet some of these criteria, right? The whole, having 30k or even 40k power with dual attack, with triple strike, for example, right? Or even triple attack. Let's say triple strike, triple attack, 40k or 30k. So that way it's the whole 3-3-3 thing, right? So that'd be a concept. 3-3-3, 30k, triple strike, triple attack. So that'd be at least the bare minimum of an ideal type of card that you want to be able to play. And of course, you want it to be pretty much immune to your opponent's free plays, among other things. So you're trying to drastically reduce your opponent's ability to interact. So basically, uninteractable win cons. So that's why I'm looking into unisons, because there's very few cards, very few 2-0 cards that can deal with unison. So obviously that is a route to go. So that's something I'm looking into. There's some unisons that do have decent effects. They can get relatively strong. They can at least be base power 30k with double strike, at least. So that's something to look into as potential, especially if you can do it with less energy. If you could get a 30k double strike for 3 energy because you're using a unison, right? Then that's awesome, right? That kind of stuff. I have a peel-off deck where I use the Jiren unison, where he's already 20k. He gives himself double strike, right, by giving himself a marker. So he'll be 20k double strike, and then use the leader's ability to make it where the unison can attack 3 times, right? So I get triple attack. So I get 3 chances of the double strike going through against my opponent having only 2 life, right? Because the idea is to at least get them down to 2, so you can, so that way double strike would be lethal. So that you just gotta try to get as many double strikes out as possible. So being able to give something triple attack, or at least playing something that has the ability to attack more than once, is something you want to do. And if you could play for less energy, the better. Because imagine playing something like, let's say, a unison that can get strong, like let's say 30k double strike for 3 energy, right? And you can swing with it. Then play 3 more energy and do it again. And you can do that on turn 4, for example, because you'll pay 3, right, to play the unison, do what the unison does, try to get that damage through. And then you'll still have 1 energy in active mode. Use your leader that has the ability to untap 2 energies, right? Awaken. Bang, now you have 3 energy. So now you can play another unison that costs 3. They can also, attack a lot and do a lot of damage. So look into something like that. Now, right now, it's popping into my head. There's the Gohan, Super Saiyan 2 Gohan yellow unison that comes from the Drip Coup deck. That has a potential. I just gotta see how many markers does it need for it to do its thing. But if I'm right, it does triple attack. So that's something, right? So something to look into. But you get the idea. It's it's a good idea to look at a lot of the unisons and see which ones have like ultimate abilities, basically. Because I know there's some unisons are very popular because of their low cost, and they usually have certain effects that your people will use and apply, just for the most basic level. Just use it and apply. Like they'll play a 2-drop unison where they draw a card, and that's mainly what they focus on. Even I do that, right? Even I use a couple unisons just for some effects, not all their effects. But it doesn't hurt to look at some unisons for their ultimates, right? For their other effects, and see if there's any viability there. So that's kind of stuff I'm looking for. Leaders as well, looking for leaders that also have triple attack, or at least can give triple attack, or at least can give dual attack, even double strike, not power boost, because I was talking about the whole 30k or 40k power base. So having leaders that can power boost all your leaders, I'm looking into stuff like that. There's a Kefla, she's a promo, a red Kefla leader, where on her front side you take a life and give 5k to all your non-black battle cards. And then on her Awaken side, she does the same thing, take a life and give 5k power to all your non-black battle cards. So if you do her front side first, take a life, and then when she has 4 less life, you can Awaken. If I'm right, she draws 2 cards when you Awaken, if I'm right. Yeah, draw 2 cards, so now you got 3 cards, right? And now, you gave 5k to all your battle cards. And if I'm right, she gives it to herself. Yeah, she gives 5k to herself, if I'm right. And then on her Awaken side, you do her effect again, take it out of life, so now you should have 4 extra cards in your hand that turn, and an extra 5k to herself and your non-black battle cards. So that's 10k to her and your your board. So you just gotta get multiple attackers out there, right? So I'm going with the whole skillet strategy, because it's the easiest way to get a whole bunch of the battle cards out there that aren't black and get them power boosters. But if you can find some other cards that you can put out there, something to keep in mind. Ooh, I just realized that. Definitely gotta give that a try. Because remember, notice that her effect says non-black battle cards. Tokens don't have color, right? Tokens don't have color, so you can power up tokens with her effect. So if you play something that can generate a whole bunch of tokens, I already got something that definitely can produce a whole bunch of tokens. It's a Frieza Unison, which, by the way, I just got a playset of the Frieza Unison, so that's definitely something I could experiment with. But yeah, I'll create some green token deck with her. There's potential there, because there's a Zamasu 3-drop that I could play. Is it a Zamasu or is it Goku Black? I can't remember. I think it's a Goku Black. Yeah, Goku Black can make shadow tokens. And there's some other drones. There's a chill, green chill. Okay, so there's green cards that I can use to make a whole bunch of tokens, and then combine it with her, and then do the whole power boosting thing. Also, I did pull one of the, what is it called, from the tournament pack, from the tournament I went this weekend. Rosie, the 3-drop Rosie that can rip 2 cards out of your opponent's hand and attack 3 times. The tournament which is played, I did pull one of her, so that was cool. Definitely need to get 3 more so that I can have a play set, so I can experiment. Because remember, she could attack 3 times. All you need to do is just give her double strike 1 time, and there's what's his name, set 1, if I'm right, set 1 Champa leader, red Champa leader. They can give her double strike. So that's the thing. Anything they can attack more than once with that leader is amazing, because pitching a card to get double strike and then just start attacking multiple times with double strike. Too good. The ability, if you could swarm the field, or at least get a couple of 30k battle cards out for cheap, then use him to give them double strike, so that way they can potentially do 4 damage per each card has potential. So these are the kind of things I'm looking for, combining certain leader effects with certain battle card effects, and then creating a scenario, an outcome that most decks don't have. So definitely trying to experiment with that. But yeah, just thinking about that'd be fun. That'd be a cool strategy. Because one of the things I have with her right now is, with the Khalifa, is the the skillless aggro strategy, where I use Fearless Pan with her, because Fearless Pan would give 5k in double strike to all, to leader and all my red battle cards, and then the leader will give an extra 10k, so I'm giving an extra 15k to the leader and all my battle cards, plus Pan's giving them double strike, so that way my leader plus all my other red battle cards will have double strike. So I would have, in some situation, I could potentially have 3 cards, at least the leader plus 2 battle cards. Not to mention, if I have a unison, then if the unison is Jaren, then that's another double strike 20k battle card, right? I mean, not battle card, a unison, right? So I have potentially 4 in that type of scenario, double strikers with at least a base power of 20k. Obviously, it'll be stronger than that, but at least a base power of 20k. That can swing my opponent. But that power is not that, that base power at least 20k is not enough. Even 30k is becoming not enough. Because one of the things you gotta take into account that I've been noticing is a lot of decks, especially popular decks that some people out there are playing, draw more. So that's something I have to take into account. When most people's maximum hand size was like between 8 or 10, yeah, 20Ks, even 30K battle cards, were more than enough to threaten your opponent, to put your opponent in a position where it's hard for them to out-combo all your attacks. But now, with some players, right, some decks I should say, drawing 20 to 30 cards, so they have huge hand sizes, it gets harder. And you know how it is, it gets harder, so it's like, okay, we gotta find some alternative, gotta have some strategy, gotta have some other way to help you win that doesn't have to do with attacking and doesn't have to do with power and stuff like that, because that's the thing, when your opponent has a huge hand size, attacking for games gets harder, a lot harder. Unless you have ways to rip their whole entire hand away, which I do have strategies for that, obviously. But there's no guarantees we will always have access to those strategies. And you might be playing a deck that doesn't use those strategies, so by default you're already at a disadvantage. You already don't have the ability to rip your opponent's hand size down to a manageable hand size that you can play against or outplay. It's hard to outplay a 30 card hand. And before I record this podcast, I was even thinking about it, like, how can I outplay a 30 card hand? And mathematically, it is very, very difficult. Very difficult. Obviously, the most reliable ways of winning the game that bypasses blockers, negates, and combo power, which are the three main ways that your opponent defends themselves, from losing, right? Is burn and mill. Burn and mill. Technically, the third would be hand control, right? I should say hand destruction, which is literally just getting rid of the whole entire hand. Control is just, control, which means they still have a hand, you're just controlling it. But ideally, you rather just get rid of the hand in entirety, so that's where the destruction comes in. So this is the kind of stuff that we're trying to figure out, right? We're trying to look into. It's like, okay, how can we incorporate more burn, right? How can we incorporate? Well, there's another one. There's the auto win con. Forgot that. Can't forget that. There's a couple auto win cons in this game. Beerus, tap 16, bang, win, right? So there's some auto win cons in the game, so can't forget that. So there's 3, technically 4, right? 4 is, ripping their hands, but auto win con, burn your opponent, down to 0, and milling them out. So there's that. There are some, win cons, right? There's some cards that we could use to, help us win the game, like Victory Strike. That's an, but that's an auto win con, right? That's an auto win. Another thing that could be an auto win, of course, or could win you the game is Ultra Insect Sign Goku. Obviously, you just need to make sure that hits its target. So you just gotta make sure your opponent can't block or negate your attack, which should be easy if you have the right cards to pull it off, right? And then bang, you'll win just by attacking with that, because your opponent can't combo. So a 30 card hand size is irrelevant against that. But that's not a generic strategy, so you can't just use it in every deck. So Mirror Create Absorb, it works similar to Ultra Instinct Goku, because its attack power will be so high that they might, even with a 30 card hand size, they might not be able to out combo the attack. But with a 30 card hand size, they have a better chance of out comboing the attack. So right now in my mind, I'm just playing with the idea that everybody I play against will have a 30 card hand size. Because normally I'm like, ideally, I want my opponent to have like 6 cards or less in the hands when I'm trying to go for game. More of an ideal situation, more reasonable, as opposed to them having 0 cards. Ideally, you want them to have 0 cards, but I'm just being a little bit more logical, a little bit more realistic. And realistically, they might have 6 to 8 cards. So I try to work with that. But if they have more than that, 10 plus cards, then it gets more difficult. And that's the thing. The more cards they have, the greater the difficulty level of dealing the last 2 damage increases. The idea is to decrease the difficulty, so that way you increase your chances of winning, right? So trying to find different ways of doing it, different strategies. But like I said, burn, mill are and the no hand thing that's on the menu. Another thing is the open hand strategy, where I get to look at my opponent's hand, rip some cards out their hands, but the hand knowledge, just being able to see the hands, is enough to help you see when it's the best time to go for game or not. Because that matters. You could try to go for game at the wrong time, and you don't want that. You don't want to be a scenario where it's like, you know what, I should try to go for game, and then when you try to go for game, it's like, baby Hatchak or something similar to that, or maybe a Topo or Oceanus or something. Something's there that gets in your way, or maybe a super combo, right? That could make a huge difference, especially if it's like a Zamasu super combo. It can make a huge difference between you winning that turn or not. But if you look at their hand and rip the super combo out, right, then you have a higher chance of your attacks going through. I mentioned this before, that by being able to see what's in your opponent's hand, you know how much you need to combo, how much you don't need to combo. Because sometimes you might combo unnecessarily. Like you'll swing with 20k to your opponent's leader, which is more than enough, right? Your opponent would need 10k to out combo that attack. But you want to be safe, so that you combo 5k, right? An extra 5k, right? So that way it forces them to have to use 5k more, right? So that way they could be 30k to out combo your attack. So, you're hoping that they don't have the extra 5k. So that way the attack goes through, or if they do have the extra 5k, hopefully you have an extra attack you can swing, and that extra attack can get through because your opponent has a smaller hand size. So that's the kind of stuff you you typically try to look for. But if you know what's in their hand, you know if they can or can't do that, and what they will and will not do so, then you'll try to outplay them. Or you'll do the patient thing. You'll swing now, see what happens, end your turn, defend yourself. Then next turn, try again, swing, see what you can do, and just slowly chip at your opponent's life. And that's the strategy. Trying to chip at your opponent's life. If you can stall long enough, and what I mean by that is defend long enough, guaranteed that you can always get to the next turn and swing, swing, swing. Get to the next turn, swing, 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 and try to see, if eventually your opponent runs out of gas, as they say, and you end up winning. But that takes so much time. You never want your opponent to get extra turns, because extra turns means extra opportunities for them to play a win card, right? Come up with a win, especially if they have a huge hand size. All it would take is for them to just get something out there that's already strong, swing. Hopefully, you can't stop the attack, is what they're hoping for, and then they'll be like, all right, time to dump my whole hand into the attack, and then they got you. So you definitely want to keep your defenses up, make sure your defense is strong, but at the same time, you need to find a way to win sooner than later, because if their hand size keeps growing, then they'll just win more because of the wall of combo, right? The combo wall. And that combo wall definitely is getting in the way, because it's not too difficult to bypass negates or even blockers, because that's why I always keep talking about dual attacks or anything that can attack more than once. Obviously playing anything that can negate a negate, right? Counter. I found some stuff. There's even a 7-drop Bardock that has the effect where you take a life in order to negate a counter attack. It's like, oh shit, has a built-in counter. I would like to see more battle cards with that type of ability. The closest we have to that, which is one of the ideas I kept putting out there, is playing something, things that have dual attack. Because if they stop your first attack, all right, at least you got a second one, right? You definitely want to make sure that your finishers can attack more than once, because you want that second chance. Because all your opponent needs to do is stop that one attack, right? Boom, and now you can't finish them. But if you can attack twice, then you have a higher chance of your attack going through. But they created blocker negates, so the dual attack things becomes a little bit more harder, right? Dual attack was originally to stop single negates, right? Negates that can only stop one attack at a time. But then they created blocker negates, so blocker negates can stop 2 attacks, so that becomes a problem. So then that's where triple attack comes in, right? We're trying to go beyond that. Especially that's blocker negates, especially at the tournament that was at, right? That popped up a lot. Blocker negates just back to back, just popping up. And if it wasn't for the blocker negates, my opponents actually would have just flat out lost right there and then, because they had very little cards in their hands, and my attacks were very strong, and most of them were like double strikes. So 30k double strike, swinging at my opponent is pretty strong. So a blocker negate stop, and they're like, god damn it. So that's a thing. Let's see. Even dormant potential unleashed being played for free, gets in the way. It's like, damn it, that's slowing me down. I had all these extra attacks. Now, that would have won me the game right there and then, but they got in the way. But this stuff exists for a reason. I mean, I use these cards myself, so I know how good they are at defending, right? Keeping yourself alive long enough. But we're always trying to find ways to bypass. So these are the obstacles, and then it's about figuring out how to bypass the obstacles. So how can I deal, the last 2 damage, or how can I mill my opponent out? Things like this is the stuff that we look into, the stuff we're trying to figure out. Obviously, that's part of my job, right? To figure this stuff out, then put this information out there, and then you guys and gals benefit from my, efforts. So far, the no hand thing with chain attack, Zeno, combo, Android 17 turn tide, strategy. I'm going to try to bring back the Ultra Instinct Sign Goku, strategy. Because like I said, the whole 30 card hand size thing. Of course, burn. Try to do the whole mill thing. So still got some stuff, to work on. Still got some things to iron out. But yeah, it's, these are not new concepts. It's just a matter of trying to figure out new ways to implement them, new ways to use these old concepts, right? Like trying to come up with new ways to mill. For example, that reminds me that there was somebody who played Boma in a way that worked like mill. And it was Danny. He won the regionals. And he was playing his Boma deck in a way where, one, he had the hand advantage thing, right? Obviously. Because of Boma, he was able to stall long enough with, blockers and reusable blockers and having that type of engine thing. So he had a whole strategy that just, kept him at high, kept him in the game long enough. And of course, drawing 2 cards every turn doesn't hurt. Well, actually 3 cards a turn, because he has this unison, then his unison can help him clear the board. So, and then he's applying pressure every turn. So he was playing that strategy. So either he wins through dealing 8 damage, or he wins through his opponent decking out. And like I said, the Shield of Combo, that's what I call it now, the Shield of Combo. I keep thinking of the idea Shield of Aegis, but I'll say combo, but so don't be confused. But essentially, that's what it feels like, the Shield of Aegis. The bigger your hand size is, the better your defense is, typically. The Shield of Combo, or the Wall of Combos, the Wall of Combo. Anyway, like the Walls of Jericho. So the Walls of Combo, we're trying to bypass, especially when it comes to attacking, because attacking is one of the most common things you can do in the game. But like I said, there's blocker, negates, combo, and then there's just even the fact of just taking the damage. Sometimes it's just just take the hit, right? Just take the hit, and then just worry about, where the next attack's coming from, and then deal with that. Part of why most of us, who play Hatchiyak, us Hatchiyak players, play Hatchiyak, right? Because it drastically reduces how many attacks our opponents can do per turn, so that way it reduces how much we have to defend. So it just makes our ability to defend easier. Not impossible, but of course we ideally would like an impenetrable defense, or that's where stuff like Deadly Defenders come into play, and being able to perfect that idea, right? Being able to perfect there's other things that we definitely could do in the game that it's just we don't yet have the cards to properly do it or to get the most out of it, but there's potential for it. I'm going to be experimenting with a strategy to greatly increase the defensive capabilities of Hatchiyak, just make it extra defensive, and then of course lean towards the mill. So that's probably what it is just increase the defensive capability of Hatchiyak, and then incorporate mill into it, and then have that as part of the mill strategy, making sure the defense is strong, so that way it makes it easier to mill. I am working on a Janemba build, so there's a lot that I'm working on. Just trying to take these ideas and just make them, easier to use, more viable, find some synergy with some stuff, so that way these strategies can be, can be used, right? Gotta make them work, especially when we got a whole bunch of new toys. We got a new set, set 17 dropped, right? And we got a whole bunch of new stuff that we can use. So definitely looking to see what I can do with the new stuff. A lot of the leaders I haven't really read and got into, because I've just been mainly focusing on concepts and strategies for playing, for the game. So I haven't really looked into a lot of the newer cards. I'm trying to see some potential in some of the cards, what they can do. Let's see what else. So much on my mind. I think I just end it here with that.